You mentioned the WTO quite a few times.
Yes.
I wonder whether you might say something about your thoughts on why the Doha Round is having so many problems right now, and well, right now for quite a number of years actually. And do you think it might be part of the reason might be that a number of countries, therefore cultures, feel quite marginalized from your exemplification of network power? Thank you.
This lady is not a plant either, but the question is very much to my, I mean, that's a wonderful question to ask, and I thank you. I have a whole chapter in the book on the World Trade Organization, and although it wasn't hard to see, I'm glad to say that before the final collapse of Doha, I predicted the collapse of Doha in the book, which again wasn't hard to see given how many rounds it had failed in. But I also try and provide some context for why I think it failed and why I don't think we should expect to see many new agreements coming out of the World Trade Organization. And it's precisely for these reasons, I think, that you're focusing on, which is, I mean, first, everyone's familiar with the Doha Round and what it purported to do. So this was a round, I see some head nodding, this was yet another round of deepening integration of the world market, focusing on particular commodities. There's stuff on finance and agriculture, and different key issues were brought in, and we were going to try and achieve free or freer trade in those domains alongside the decreased trade restrictions we already have in areas of manufactured goods and so on. And so it was an attempt if the Doha Round had succeeded, it really would have completed the agenda of the World Trade Organization in significant respects, and we would have had something approaching a completely integrated world economy. And the significant exceptions to the world free trade that had been in place since the inception of the World Trade Organization would finally have been removed. But it failed, and it's failed something like 3 times or 4 times, and in lots of it depends on whether the informal backroom negotiations failing count as much as the formal negotiations failing. And the reason why it's failing is that in the World Trade Organization, even one country, but if it's a powerful country, or a block of countries, can block a new agreement. It has to have consensus at the level of the agreement process. So why is there no consensus on world free trade anymore? Well, there are a lot of reasons for this, but one thing may be that it hasn't worked as well as a lot of countries were told it would, and so they're less interested in committing further to a process, that's to say throwing good money after bad from their perspective. The other issue might be that a diversity of national regulatory regimes is actually valuable. Take something like agriculture. Now, on one hand, you might say that it's important to have free trade in agriculture so that we have more agriculture. That would be the standard sort of argument. You'd have more farming, you'd have more production of agricultural commodities. But now consider the problem not as an actuarial problem or an accounting problem of who's having more wheat or corn. Think of it from a standpoint rather of food security. I think the problem begins to take a different valence. Why should it be, for example, that the citizens of a country, say France, should trust their food future, their food security, to the international marketplace? Why should they feel the international marketplace will deliver them a safer and more secure food supply going forward than having national control over their food supply? Now, I don't want to say there's not lots of in-between scenarios and the situation is more complex, but I think when we begin to think about trade, not just at the level of, let's say, absolute increases in welfare, but we begin to think about trade as a problem also of security and of national regulation, particularly after the problems we've suffered in this country recently. We begin to think, well, having our own government in charge of certain areas of our life that are really important, maybe not such a bad thing, and I'm not sure they want to leave everything to the international marketplace. The international marketplace is very good at some things for some times and then very bad at those same things at other times, which is a little bit risky. For something like food, it's not clear to me that that should be the case. Again, I'm not saying that the Doha Round failed because everyone was really thinking of it in noble terms about food security. There were lots of issues, I think, that probably should have been taken out. But I don't see necessarily why we should assume that the trajectory of the World Trade Organization should be for a completely integrated world economy. There may be lots of reasons why a completely integrated world economy might be less preferable than a form of world economy in which there was significant international integration, but not total economic integration, particularly if full integration means that we have less political control over things that matter to us in our daily lives.